Hello, ladies and gents. Welcome to CG Reaction. This is the U.S. blockade of Venezuela is worse than you think. Yeah, this much how Cappy Army. Only 2 hours ago, this was posted, and I jumped at it because this is the next phase of shit. This is big. If this is real, which is of course it is. Why wouldn't it be? That's a stupid thing to say. Of course it's real. Cappy is making video about it. Okay, this is problematic. This is probably war worthy. I don't know where this is gonna go, but you can't just blockade another country. This is USA blockading another country completely. Now, obviously, like at this point, like people are going, yeah, the reason is this, reason is that. Whatever your reasoning is, the point is USA is blockading another country, and this might lead to war. That's what it is. You can't just blockade another country because you decided certain reasoning is enough for you to blockade another country. That's what I'm saying. Imagine if they did that with China. What do you think would happen? If US suddenly blockaded China, would China just sit there? Only reason is Venezuela is not powerful, so they can do that type of way. So I don't know where this is going to go, but it's going to be interesting. Let's watch this one.
Take a look at the live conflict map behind me. We can see the geolocated flashpoints of the United States military's blockade and the strikes on drug trafficking vessels. America just ordered the 4th Fleet to execute a complete and total blockade of all sanctioned oil tankers that are entering and leaving Venezuela's coasts. This is a significant escalation and a historic move because the US hasn't openly enforced a maritime blockade in more than 60 years now. I'm absolutely honestly shocked that we haven't seen an F-35 shoot down a drug Cessna with an AIM-9X Sidewinder yet. So why would the US military double down and make this move now? Because analysts believe it will deeply cut the Venezuelan government's main revenue stream of oil. Did I hear oil? This will increase the risk of political instability, increase the chance.
Look, man, of course it's oil. It's Trump. Probably George Bush, but much worse. Of course, this was coming. Now, again, as soon as I say this, people are going to start typing comments like, okay, I just watch war crime videos of USA. Okay, war crime happens like with all countries there is. Well, let's be honest, not many countries invade at the level USA does. I don't know. But that video was really fucked up. And people was defending in the comments like, and what about this whataboutism? They were bringing that up. So I can already see people talking about it. The reality is you're blockading another country, trying to invade another country, and let's be honest, it's because of oil. Don't bullshit me, it's about drugs. Like, drugs might be a small thing, but not at this scale. If you're doing it at this scale, it's about oil.
Chances of protest and revolution in the nation, which is perfect for Washington's goals of regime change without needing to go full boots on the ground. Never go full boots on the ground. Because since August, Operation Southern Spear has been ramping up. This gigantic armada of over a dozen US warships, stealth fighters, submarines, aircraft carrier, and 15,000 troops yelling "Oorah," having surrounded.
Yeah, okay, I don't know what people are gonna think, like MAGA people will think. Like I said, I know people are going to defend it already, but what would they think long term? MAGA people don't want war. They made it clear with Afghanistan. They are not going to be happy with the war with Venezuela. Because if Venezuela responds by attacking US ships, because they're blockading them, and that's problematic, Venezuela can justify, like, yeah, they just illegally blockaded us. You can't just fucking do that. Of course, we're going to attack. Okay, US is going to be war with Venezuela. Would people be okay with it? Because this is USA is the one who's doing this. They are the one who blockading. They are the one who's doing the first shot.
The northern coast. We know from looking at the open source intelligence tool marinetraffic.com, 30 sanctioned oil tankers are still remaining in port or have already turned around. These vessels are chilling because in mid-December, a team of US Special Forces fast roped from 2 helicopters and seized one of these sanctioned oil tankers named Skipper. This helicopter insertion method is preferred when a ship refuses to stop and tries to run a blockade. Troops quickly seized seized the bridge of the ship and began sailing its over 1 million barrels of oil, $60 million worth of oil to the port in Houston, Texas. The White House stated that they're planning to launch more of these tactical tanker seizures. In retaliation, Venezuelan President Maduro ordered his navy to start escorting oil tankers into and out of port. This increases the risk of direct confrontation with U.S. troops now because they're the ones who are attempting to interdict these vessels at the same time. How is the Venezuelan Navy now attempting to break this blockade? And are those strikes against the drug boats even legal? And where is the U.S. preparing to strike on land? Before we get into that, if you're running...
Yeah, see, okay, first of all, again, you can't just seize and say like this is illegal and we say it's illegal. You can't just like say you can put oil tankers out, we're going to blockade you. In the international lens, it's going to be America which is at wrong here. USA is going to be in the wrong here, and this is not like past time, this modern world with modern internet and information world. Nobody's going to look at this now or even the long term and say USA wasn't at wrong. You can't just say, oh, by the way, drugs. Okay, I'll give you an example. What if USA suddenly blockades India and say like, oh, scam centers. India doesn't do anything about it, we're going to blockade you. You think India's not going to launch a ballistic missile at USA after doing that shit? And would anyone like blame India for doing that? If USA suddenly decides to like blockade them. This is an example. This is fucked up, man. Like this is like, you know, like I hope left and right, both sides condemn this shit. Like you shouldn't do this. What are you doing? Like, okay, attacking ships, taking down drug boats is one thing. Blockading Venezuela completely as a country just because you don't like their president. That's not your choice who their president is. You don't decide who's the leader of another country. Yeah, well, go to regional page link from there, support this channel.
And your first app is free forever. Just click my link in the description or the pinned comment below and start making your business run like it's supposed to. General Kane and Hegseth are trying to put into action another more direct and deadlier naval blockade that's happening on a different level. If we zoom in, enhance. Here we can see the location of every strike on narco-terrorist drug boats. They're hitting it from both sides, east and west. Coast Guard snipers are firing 50 cal rounds into narco-trafficker boat engines from moving...
Okay, again, I'm not saying these are not narco-terrorist boats. But where's the evidence? It's just US is like, trust me, bro, that's it. And you're blowing the ships up and they're sinking, so you can't take evidence later on. Last time they said like, oh, there were some fishermen there. Okay, all you say like, yeah, no, there weren't. Trust me, bro, that's not really evidence. I'm not saying they're not that. I'm saying there is no evidence. History will not look back and see this kindly.
Helicopters, SEAL Team 6 has been overseeing 26 missile strikes by Hellfires that have blown up drug transport ships, killing nearly 100 traffickers. And what's happening here is a two-layer blockade. Layer 1 is that sanctions layer where ships are seized, and layer 2 is this lethal interdiction. Taken together, they're turning the screw deeper and deeper on Maduro, trying to get him to immediately step down. And the reason this all matters is because this does not stop at the sea. This is where this stops just being a maritime story, because the US military is quickly positioning the tools needed for land strikes. In December, we observed the US deployed additional Growler electronic warfare jets capable of jamming Venezuelan air defense, and they repositioned a combat search and rescue helicopter unit that specializes specifically in extracting downed pilots over hostile territory. That's a major indicator of what is to come next. Setting the stage for this escalation we just saw in mid-December for the first time ever, the Trump administration designated Maduro's regime as a terrorist organization and labeled fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction. These actions give the US government increased legal justification for using its full...
I don't think they should have named it weapon of mass destruction just because of Iraq thing. Are they doing Iraq 2.0? You know what the fucked up thing is? George Bush was doing, oh, gay people are getting married, trying to deflect from Iraq war. This is opposite. Trump is trying to deflect from Epstein files and his own shit. And now, oh, by the way, here's a Venezuela war because of drugs. Okay, focus on that. Don't focus on anything else.
full firepower to combat narco-terrorists. However, sources widely agree fentanyl does not usually transit from Venezuela. It mainly comes from Mexico and China. I think the reason many people in the United States still...
Exactly. Fentanyl is not the biggest. Okay, people commenting. Yeah, that's the point. I don't know how I forgot that. Venezuela is not the biggest supplier of fentanyl. China and Mexico is. You're teaming up with Mexico, and you're very buddy with China because you can't attack China. So Venezuela drug BS doesn't even work here.
Feel good about seeing drug boats destroyed is simple. After more than a decade of hundreds of thousands of Americans killed by drug trafficking, it can feel satisfying to watch traffickers face immediate violent consequences. Hardly a person in the United States has had their life unaffected by drugs, so seeing summary execution of those even involved in it in any way, shape, or form can be cathartic. Even when the boats...
How do you know that's true though? Like I said, I just watched war crime videos about USA, and many times like military just say, oh, this is that, trust me bro, and then evidence came out. Some news reporter found evidence and then came out like, no, this is bullshit, they're lying. And there were like military trials and nothing happened. How do you know this is not one of those cases and like innocent people on the boat? Your military is not really providing like any evidence. Oh, just trust me bro, that's what's happening.
Aren't carrying fentanyl. This instinct for revenge is a deep part of human nature in war. There's also a deterrent logic at play. There's a message being sent in each missile to every cartel smuggler and also to the Venezuelan military that are watching. It says, you might be next. And it's undeniably a spectacle on top of that, a brutal one. The fact that the U.S. military maintains an official video repository, the website DVids, has become like a live leak where it uploads real combat footage, including their kill cams of narco boats. To me, this is a surreal feature of modern warfare. It turns these lethal engagement and enforcements into something publicly consumable. And in that sense, to me, it resembles a modern-day Roman Colosseum that people indulge in and are entertained by. It can feel like justice is being served, at least to some who are observing this. But
not really. In Colosseum, both sides were given somewhat of control. Only one person has control here.
not everyone views it that way, of course. There's an ongoing debate about the legality of these strikes. Whole think pieces are written about follow-on airstrikes that kill survivors after the initial disablement of their boats. But that debate rarely gains traction. Public sympathy isn't there. It's extraordinarily difficult to...
It's basically America is the top of the world and America said what's legal and not. Fuck you. That's what it is. If any other country did it, yeah, America is the one who will be lecturing people. Like, you shouldn't do this.
Convince Americans to feel empathy for these drug traffickers, or to portray these vessels as innocent fishing boats when they're low-profile speed craft with multiple onboard engines, reinforced hulls, excess fuel containers, no legitimate fish on board, no tracking AIS, and crew actively attempting to flee armed interdiction. They operate at night through known trafficking corridors, attempting to outrun helicopters and naval patrols. If it looks like a duck and smokes crack like a duck, it's probably a
Was that a fucking submarine? How?
narco-terrorist. But whether it's legal or not, or whether these are innocent fishermen or not, many Americans are feeling helpless to stop the scourge of drugs, and they want to see a take-no-prisoners approach. I'm not putting a moral judgment.
Again, I don't like none of this. Okay, I get it. Like, your country is at risk here. Nobody likes drugs. All this is an issue, but that doesn't mean you just take out on your anger on anyone you can see. Without evidence, without due process, without even understanding what's happening. That's where the fucked up thing comes from. Right? We've seen this many times. I get it. Public anger is there, but you should demand evidence. Like, are these drug traffickers or just trust me bro level shit? I'm sure like CIA documents will leak in future. Like, yes, some of them weren't even drug boats. People are like, I guess it's statistic. Really?
Judgment on that, I'm just explaining how many of the American public views this campaign. When we move over to analyzing the campaign over land, we can see how Venezuela's oil system is geographically boxed in the Orinoco heavy oil belt. Most production, refining, and export nodes are all along this coast. From a blockade perspective, this means the United States does not need to surround the whole country. It only needs to control a narrow set of sea lanes to exert disproportionate pressure. Wait, I'm having Flashbacks of Libya in 2011. This is like the same exact geography, oil resources, dictator. Sometimes history rhymes, sometimes it straight up plagiarizes itself. Weapons of mass destruction. I feel.
Yeah, I think it's mostly United States though. United States plagiarizes United States. That's, yeah.
I feel like I'm in a fugue state right now. Except there isn't a large armed militia on the ground like in Libya, and hopefully it doesn't devolve into a civil war. Naval blockades come in three main types. There's distant blockades that seal off an enemy from far away choke points in open seas, and then there's close blockades that put warships directly outside enemy ports to physically stop them, like the U.S. quarantine of Cuba in 1962 was effectively a close blockade. Then there are selective blockades which target specific cargo through enforcing and stopping anything that's sanctioned, like this one. Okay, that's important info. Several oil tankers have already sailed from Venezuela toward Asia, with a naval escort protecting them. In fact, 80% of this sanctioned oil ends up heading to China. However, according to the New York Times, so far none of these escorted vessels are actually on the naughty list of sanctioned tankers, so it's kind of an empty threat so far. Does that mean Maduro is bluffing? Is he playing coy? That scamp. It's a concern because Venezuela uses a 2,500-ton Mariscal Sucre class frigate and a Paglo patrol vessel class for these kind of escort missions. Even in poor maintenance, their SAM missiles and 76mm cannon pose a threat to helicopters that are nearby. Its Automat anti-ship missile could also cause serious damage, but firing one at the US Navy would be a good way to instantly get deleted. And the Maritime Security Response Team have tricks up their sleeve, including electronic warfare jamming that allow them to get to these vessels and board them anyway. It's vital for Maduro's survival to keep that dark fleet of sanctioned ships delivering oil to their customers, because 70% of the country's oil exports rely on it, which will now be choked off. This means at least $8 billion in revenue per year in oil that's been sanctioned by the Treasury Department. We're talking about a huge amount. To put that into context, that's like 10% or more.
Okay, basic in general terms, okay, so US has just said like this is not, I mean, this is illegal, so it's illegal. That's what it is, right? Otherwise, I'm confused, comment down, I guess. Sanctions just mean like US has said like this is illegal. Again, let's take a step back. How can one country can just dictate like that about another country, right? This is what I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying like America's wrong here. Probably drug and everything, like Maduro's military being part of the cartel themselves is all a problem. I'm not saying it's not. But the way this is happening, I don't think history is going to look at them kindly, especially if this devolves into much bigger war.
Of Venezuela's total GDP. There are over 1,000 rogue oil tankers from Russia, Venezuela, North Korea, and Iran that have been getting around sanctions this way for years. What they do is they fly different countries' flags in an attempt to hide their actual country of origin, and they issue false, spoofed transponder readings of their GPS location. Or they turn transponders off entirely to hide their vessel's true location. This way, they're less likely to be stopped or inspected. They launder their oil to other tankers as well. Stopping this fleet has the goal of draining Venezuela's oil revenues, because this is their whole lifeline of their economy. And Maduro made a public statement that the blockade is, quote, a shameless robbery and an act of international piracy. This is more like technically a partial blockade, or more of a quarantine, if you will, if we're splitting the hairs of semantics here, because merchant ships and commercial tankers will continue to be able to pass through.
I mean, Maduro's not really wrong. Like, you need to see it from outside perspective. I'm an outside perspective. I don't care about either side. So I can see it from outside perspective. Yeah, kind of like US just decided to do this shit regardless of your reasoning.
And trade to and from Venezuela's coast for now. PDVSA is the state-owned oil company in Venezuela, and they made a statement about the naval escorts saying, quote, their ships sail with full security, technical support, and operational guarantees in legitimate exercise of their rights to free navigation. Meanwhile, U.S. officials are looking into options on how to respond to these naval escort ships that Venezuela is sending out. One of the easiest ways is to seize tankers outside Venezuelan territorial waters. These combat ships cannot operate far out.
Isn't that itself piracy? International water, if you see somebody else's ship, you're literally stealing, aren't you? What gives US Navy and US military authority? Just because they say so?
outside their coasts without logistical support. So the oil tankers can be stopped on their way to China and yoinked up. If an escort ship were to try to prevent seizure of a ship by firing at an American helicopter with a boarding crew, that would be the perfect casus belli the US government's looking for to launch a massive retaliation attack.
Casus belli.
That's a fancy word for I'm totally justified in killing people now. Take a look at this population density map.
People are not stupid. That's if you go there and blockade them and they attack you back and then you attack back, people are still gonna blame you. I mean,
Of Venezuela. People are overwhelmingly concentrated along the northern coastal belt. The main cities, including the capital in Caracas, form a continuous strip of high human density. Any strike here carries increased risk of collateral damage, which would be no bueno. However, this geography is an advantage to US bombers because they don't have to travel over vast distances of land to reach key targets, which would expose them to air defense. This strongly incentivizes precision, standoff weapons, and maritime delivered effects instead of any kind of deep ground operation. This diagram here shows Venezuela's key energy production power facilities that generate their electricity, also all located in the north near the shore. The private intelligence company RAIN, their analysts assess that the US will likely strike ground targets in Venezuela, especially cartel camps, airstrips, ports, warehouses, and bases. Reports from Washington show that the US military is positioning for precision strikes on drug trafficking routes.
see, if you do that, that's understandable. If you deliberately attack cartel areas and give out evidence that see this is our photos, this satellite photos, these were cartel hideouts and things, that makes sense. Blockading a country,
which are not protected by air defense. Ian Ellis Jones on X created a geolocated map of all military targets in the country, and we can see instantly that the military air bases and naval facilities, their command and control nodes, and high-value air defense all sit along this northern coastal arc. Caracas is where the Ministry of Defense headquarters is located, their intelligence service, aviation command, it's all located in this one single point of failure. Didn't anyone tell you not to put all your eggs in one basket? Even limited degradation here would have ripple effects outward. Large gaps in air defense remain inland and in the south. The important thing to see here is that Maduro is not able to absorb pressure. The regime
what? Even if the gaps weren't there, what the fuck they would have done against USA? Okay, Maduro made sure that there is no gaps in their defense. Venezuela has no gap in their defense. Okay, here comes USA. Their tech is so advanced that it doesn't matter what you have, they'll find a way to fuck you up. Like, what are we even talking about here?
clings to a narrow coastal spine with no defense in depth. From a defensive perspective, it's unfavorable. However, the vast nation of 350,000 square miles, made up of jungles and mountains, are also unforgiving to ground invasions. The southern half of the country is almost empty by comparison. Extremely low population density here, with little strategic value and very limited infrastructure. The south of the nation is made up of mostly difficult terrain, it's dense rainforests. It's actually beautiful. I wish I could go there one day if Maduro didn't extradite me to Russia. But this terrain makes much of the country inaccessible. On the other hand, the south of the nation is where all of the narco trafficking happens, because here on the Colombian-Venezuelan border is where cocaine is moved through the nation. Venezuelan military units at these checkpoints charge fees and provide safe passage for it. We call that in New Jersey protection money. From there, it's shipped to temporary airfields and flown north to the Caribbean or Central America. The drugs are also shipped to ports in the north, and then they are put on speedboats to head up north from there. The pressure remains on, as we can see 5 of the American F-18 fighter jets and a radar aircraft are now routinely flying right next to the nation's shores with their transponders purposely turned on. On Flight 24 tracker, we can see that they're flying in these tight 360-degree circles within visible distance of the shores near Caracas. And one of the main people to know here, who's a key figure in planning and executing these aircraft missions, is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Dan Kane. When asked how he's advising the president on Venezuela, he said, quote, "The Joint Chiefs of Staff job is to present the range of military options that this president should consider with all the secondary and tertiary considerations that go into those options, so that a president can make whatever decision he wants to make, and then we deliver." It's easy to get this mixed up, but the chairman of the Joint Chiefs does not actually command any forces. His job is to purely create strategy and advise military options, and it's interesting how he knows notes that he's telling the president about possible second and third degree reactions here, meaning possible blowback from any considerations. However, the other key figure in this conflict that you need to know is Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. He's in the direct chain of command, and his role is to advise on policy and also executes orders on behalf of the president. His job is also to be sort of the face.
I feel like his job is too big for him. And to me, it feels like someone like experienced, like a former general or something, should have had it. I don't know. Why does he have this job? Like, none of that should make sense. If war actually happens, isn't his position kind of important? I don't know.
Face and voice of these missions in public, and he said, quote, "This mission defends our homeland, removes narco-terrorists from our hemisphere, and secures our homeland from the drugs that are killing our people."
Again, most of fentanyl doesn't come from Venezuela.
End quote. Where is this headed from here? Analysts and private intelligence at RAIN have assessed that President Nicolas Maduro will likely remain in power in 2026 unless a strike hits him or there's a large ground campaign, which they believe is unlikely. They assess that the regime will likely retain sufficient support within the security apparatus to hold on to power.
Okay, what if Maduro attacks US Navy because of the blockade? You telling me US will not invade Venezuela? I think they would have to, just because like international image. Same thing with Russia, Ukraine. Like how much image of Russia was tarnished because of the invasion, right? Something like that. If Venezuela attacks US's ship and gets away with it, then they have to invade. To me, this is one of the weirdest shit USA could have done, doing this kind of a blockade. They could have used many other tactics and many other technology they have, but no, they blockaded. This is kind of thick-headed. This will lead to war. In the end, doesn't matter what. This is fucked up. And I don't think every single American would like that. They don't want another war.
Power. This would make kinetic strikes against government buildings and other political targets in Caracas more likely, though. And beyond Venezuela, Washington is also likely to target cartels in border areas or isolated regions of Mexico and...
Okay, if you attack governmental buildings, aren't you automatically under war against a country? I don't know.
Colombia, and they believe this will initially be done while seeking the agreement of these countries' governments. They also note that as nations vote in conservative powers, this ideological alignment will help facilitate U.S. military action across Latin America. Once sanctions turn into seizures, seizures turns into strikes, we're already climbing the escalation ladder. The only question left is who blinks first. If you like this video,
yeah, this is kind of fucked up. It's not about who blinks first. It's not stare down. One side is too big. It's a titan. Other side is not even close. This is a very weird dynamic that's happening right now. I don't like this, man. I'm not gonna lie. This is like really fucked up. Things will happen because of this, and people will not look kindly to USA. They already don't look kindly to USA when it comes to Iraq war. Right? You can like get away with Vietnam and everything. Oh, it was Cold War, it was different. And you don't know, man, that type of shit. It's not gonna work now in 2025. I know people are gonna be pissed off in the comments, but hey, I have to say what I feel. There you go. Alright, I'll see you next time.